The purpose of this lesson is to use the field calculator to make an informed decision. So what we're going to do is create a new field, and in that new field we want to populate it with certain information depending upon other fields. So we're going to look at 6 fields, and from what we understand about those 6 fields, using some looping statements, we're going to decide what the value should be of a new record in a certain field. And then we're going to repeat that for every row that is in our attribute table. So this is going to be done inside ArcGIS Pro, and what we're going to do is go into ArcGIS Pro, open the attribute table, go to calculate, so that we're going to be calculating a new field, and then we will go from that point. So you can see I've opened up the attribute table. I'm going to turn on draw so that I can show you a few things. And I've started by clicking here on calculate. By clicking on calculate, it's going to open up a new form for me to fill out. Now, I haven't created a new field, but you can create that new field in that form. And this data that we're looking at is college data, both colleges and universities. We've only given you data for a few select states. We've not given you data for the entire country just because of the size of the data set. If we gave you data for the entire country, it'd be well over 3,000 records, and we didn't want to give you that much data, that you are just learning how to do information with this type of data. So we've given you data for 4 states. So when we click on the calculate button, we'll see a new screen will open up that looks like the following. So as you can see, a new form has opened up. On this we see the input table. That's the one where we open the attribute table, and it's called colleges. The next field is left blank. Notice there's a pull down over here, so if we wanted to use an existing field to do this calculation in, we could do that, or we could just come in here and type a name, and by typing the name we would create a new field in our attribute table. For our purposes, we want to make sure that we choose Python, and we're working in 64-bit Python, so this is Python 3, and we can see all the fields that currently exist, and we see a place that we can put our code. So what we're going to do in the next screen that you're going to see is actually enter code and discuss the code that we've entered. This is the same form that we just looked at, except we've expanded the width a little bit and we've filled in some of the fields. So notice we've put a new field name here called new field. It's important to note that there is a underline there. It cannot have a space in the field name. So we have a new field. Here is some of the existing fields that we're going to be using. And notice that's automatically been inserted for us, this word new field. And I'm going to erase what I just did there so that we can see what's underneath it. There we go. Go back and choose my pen. So these are fields in this box here. The fields that we selected. So we got function information, and then we selected out of the chart that's up here above these different fields. Those names don't make good sense to us in what we're doing, so we need to use names that make sense. So this first line of code here that starts with DEF, we're defining names that make better sense. So type. Type is it a 2-year college or is it a 4-year college? So, classes, does it offer geospatial classes? Cert, does it offer a certificate? Does it offer an associate degree? Does it offer a bachelor's degree? Does it offer graduate programs? Note there has to be the same number of items in this box as there is in this define row. If there is a different number of items, it will not work. So this is just some very simple code. We'll look at it a little bit in more depth in just a moment. So you come to an if statement, and in the if statement it asks, is it a two-year college? So if type is the type of college that we defined in the statement before, is the type a two-year college? If it is true, we're going to drop down to another if statement. If it is false, we're going to drop down here to the else statement and assume it has to be a four-year college. So we're going to return in our new field four-year institution. If it was true, we're going to drop down to an if statement and we're going to look at the classes field. Do they offer classes? If it's true, then we're going to return two-year college with GIS classes. If it's false, that inner if statement is false, we're going to drop down to the inner else statement and say two-year college with no GIS classes. So what we're doing here is looking at data in two different fields and trying to decide what the parameters should be. So if in the type field it's a two-year college, we're going to do more investigation. If the type is a four-year college, we're just going to put in our new field that it's a four-year institution and we're going to move on. So this is the way that this works. We're going to make this a little bit more complicated Python code by asking more questions of the data using embedded if statements, but using also the else if statement. What you're looking at now is just that code block area off that form. So what we've done is just expanded to make it a little easier to look at. We've also added additional lines of script to make a more definitive operation. So we're going to start by being able to draw here. There you can see my block of code. Okay, we have the define statement like we talked about before here. And then we go to our first if statement. Our first if statement is what we've already explored. We're checking to see if it's a two-year college. If it's a two-year college, we're going to continue on with everything that's indented here. If it is not a two-year college, we're going to come around to this else statement. And the else statement is going to just assume if it's not a two-year college, then it's got to be a four-year institution. And it's going to return that to the field and go back and check the next record. So the first thing we're checking then is a combined if statement, and all three of these have to be true because we're using the AND function here in the statement. So we're checking to see if they offer classes, do they offer a certificate, do they offer an associate degree. If all three of those are yes, then it's going to go straight down below to the return statement. And it's going to return in that field two-year colleges offering classes, certificates, and degrees. Pretty lengthy, but that is a description of what it's doing. If that would have been false, if the AND statements there do not make all three of them true, then it's going to drop down to the first else if statement. And we're going to see if they offer classes and certificates. If that's true, then it's going to drop down to the return and fill the new field in with two-year colleges offering classes and certificates. If that's not true, it's going to drop down to the next else if statement, and it's going to check if they offer associate degrees and classes. True, then there's a statement that's going to be put in the field. If false, we're going to check and see if they only offer classes. If it's true, we're going to go to the last return there within the else if grouping. And if it's false, we're going to drop down to this embedded else statement, and we're going to return two-year colleges but no GIS. So it's not teaching, they're not teaching GIS. So we've got these different classifications. We're not changing the existing data fields because we've added a new field, and depending upon what is in other fields depends on what result we put in the new field. And we interrogate every row, but each row is an individual college.